Hi everyone, I am Vanessa D. San Miguel. In this video, we will be discussing the second stay of José Rizal in Paris during the Exposition Universelle of 1889. This period is important because it shows how Rizal continued to grow as a writer, thinker, and patriot while facing different challenges in Europe. In this presentation, we will be talking about his life in Paris, the Filipino societies he founded, his important works and writings, his move to Brussels, and his experiences in Madrid, including the struggles he faced along the way. We are a group of 7 members who work together to present this topic. We hope that by watching this video, everyone will clearly understand Rizal's journey, his experiences, and how they shaped his fight for the Filipino people.
Hi everyone, I'm Gian Turok and let's tackle about Rizal's second sojourn in Paris and Universal Exposition. Rizal's second sojourn in Paris took a place from March 1889 to January 1890. So, the Universal Exposition of 1889 was a major international World's Fair hosted in Paris, France, organized to mark the 100th anniversary of the storming of Bastille, the historic event that symbolized the start of the French Revolution. It showcased the world's latest advancements in technology, science, arts, and culture. The event drew millions of visitors from across the globe, with the newly built Eiffel Tower serving as its iconic centerpiece and main attraction for Rizal. Being in Paris during this time exposed him to progressive ideas and global developments which further inspired his intellectual work and advances for his country. Next one is Rizal's difficulty of finding quarters. During his stay in Paris, Rizal faced challenges securing affordable and convenient accommodation due to the high demand and rising costs brought by the ongoing Universal Exposition. To manage expenses, he first stayed temporarily at the home of his friend, which is Valentin Ventura at number 45 Rue Mabuche. As he found the place unsuitable or costly, he moved several times from one residence to another, until he finally settled in a shared lodging with 2 fellow Filipinos, which is Capitan Justo Trinidad and Jose Albert, allowing him to live more economically while continuing his studies and work. So the next one is Rizal's life in Paris. Despite the lively atmosphere of the city, Rizal led a disciplined and productive life. He spent most of his time studying and doing research at the reading room of the Bibliothèque Nationale, writing letters to stay connected with his friends and family, keeping himself physically fit through daily exercises at the gymnasium and visiting his fellow countrymen and acquaintances. The next one is the 3 Filipino society Rizal founded. First one is Kidlat Club. The Kidlat Club was the first organization Rizal established during his stay in Paris, created primarily to gather young Filipinos living in the French capital. Its members included notable figures such as the Luna brothers, Gregorio Aguilera, and Baldomero Roxas. While it started as a simple social group to foster unity and camaraderie among compatriots, it also served as a foundation for future societies that would later advance national pride and patriotic ideals. Second one is Indios Bravos. Succeeding the Kidlat Club, this society was formed to change the negative view that foreigners had towards Filipinos. Members committed to developing both their intellect and physical strength to earn respect and admiration, especially from the Spaniards. They trained diligently in martial arts and weapon handling, and Rizal himself taught them judo, all with the aim of proving that Filipinos are capable, dignified, and worthy of honor.
Now, let's begin with the RDIM Society or Redemptions de los Malayos, which means Redemptions of the Malays. This was a secret society formed by José Rizal. However, he only revealed these organizations to a few trusted individuals, including José María Basa and Marcelo H. del Pilar. The society was patterned after Freemasonry, which means it followed a structured and secretive system with shared ideas and brotherhood. Only a small number of Rizal's trusted friends became members, such as Gregorio Aguilera, Julio Loriente, Mariano Ponce, Baldomero Rojas, and Father Jose Maria Chango. The main goal of the society was to spread useful knowledge, scientific, artistic, and literary in the Philippines. At the same time, it aimed for the redemption of the Malay race, meaning to uplift and improve condition of the Filipino and other Malay people. So in the simple terms, the goal is to improve the knowledge of the Filipino and help them become more progressive and independent. In these slides, we will discuss Rizal's plans for leadership and his idea of colonization. While in Hong Kong, Rizal wrote a letter to Ferdinand Blumentritt, where he expressed his desire to become a leader of freedom. If not in the Philippines, he was willing to help Filipinos and others' land. One of his major ideas was the plan for Bornean colonization. This was his proposal to establish a Filipino community in Borneo where they could live freely. The provisions of this plan included: first, the right of the colonies to buy land, meaning they could legally own property. Second, free use of seahorses, which is important for trade and livelihood. Third, a very long lease period of 999 years. This long period was intended to give enough time for many generations to grow, develop, and eventually form a stable nation. So basically, Rizal was thinking long term. He wanted the Filipinos to have a place where they could live without operations and they could build a strong nations. Annotated edition of Morga published. Now, let's move to one of Rizal's greatest achievements, his annotated edition of Successus de las Islas Filipinas. This was completed during his time in Paris. He worked on it in the British Museum. It was later printed by Garnier Frias Publishing Company. The original book was written by Antonio de Morga, but Rizal added annotations to correct biases and highlight the achievements of Filipinos before Spanish colonization. The prologue of the book was written by Ferdinand Blumentritt. However, some critics pointed out Rizal's error. For example, they said he judged past events using modern standards. Others believe his criticism of the church were too harsh, arguing that the abuses of friars should not represent the entire Catholic faith. Despite this criticism, Rizal's work was very important. He dedicated the book to the Filipino people so they could understand their glorious past. Most importantly, he proved that Filipinos were already civilized, even before the Spanish arrived. So overall, this work was not just history, it was a way of awakening Filipino pride. Rizal showed that he is not inferior, but he has the same culture and traditions. Comment on Morga's publication date. Now, let's discuss the issue regarding the publication date of Rizal annotated edition of Successus de las Islas Filipinas. The title page states that it was published in Paris by Garnier Hermanos in 1890. However, this is strong documentary evidence showing that it was actually printed earlier in 1889. There are the important letters that support this claim. First, on October 12, 1889, Ferdinand Blumentritt already received a copy of the book and letterments. Second, on December 28, 1889, José Rizal sent copies to Dr. Baldomero Rojas from Paris to Lipa. Third, on December 31, 1889, Mariano Ponce also received a copy. These pieces of evidence clearly prove that the book was already printed and distributed in 1889, not 1890. So in conclusion, the appointed date on the title page is incorrect because historical documents show earlier circulation of the book, The Philippines Within a Century. In these slides, we will talk about Rizal's essays titled The Philippines Within a Century. In this work, José Rizal expressed his views about Spanish colonization in the Philippines. He also made a very accurate prediction about the possible end of Spanish rule in Asia. The essay is divided into 3 parts. The first part discusses the glorious past of the Filipino people before colonization. Rizal emphasized that Filipino already had a rich cultures and organized society. The second part talk about the economic stagnations and suffering of Filipinos under harsh Spanish rule. He explained how colonial policies negatively affected the country's development. The last parts look into future. Rizal warned Spain that if it would not implement reforms or adopt more liberal and enlightened policy, it would eventually lose its colonies. So basically, this essay is both historical and predictive. It is as if Rizal has already warned Spain of their failure if they do not change. Now, let's move on to another important work of Rizal, The Indolence of the Filipino. In this essay, Rizal defended Filipinos against the accusation that they were naturally lazy or indolent. He conducted a critical study to analyze the real reason why Filipinos seem unproductive during the Spanish regime. His main argument or thesis is that Filipinos are not naturally indolent. Instead, their condition was influenced by external factors, especially the colonial system. So, the point is, it's not because Filipino are lazy by nature, but because of the system and condition they went through during Spanish rule. Causes of indolence. In these slides, we will look at the different causes of economic decline according to Rizal. First, native revolts and internal conflicts disrupted peace and stability. Second, Filipinos were forced to fight in wars for Spain, such as against the Dutch, Portuguese, and English, which drained manpower and resources. Third, coastal areas were frequently attacked by pirates from Mindanao and Solo, causing fear and destruction. Fourth, forced labor or polo e servicio made people work without proper compensation. Fifth, there was a lack of motivation because Filipinos could not enjoy the fruits of their labor. Sixth, the government showed neglect and lack of support for agriculture, industry, and trade. Seventh, Spaniards set a bad example by looking down on manual labor, which influenced social attitude. 8. Some missionaries indirectly encouraged gambling instead of productivity. And lastly, Spaniards' education system was ineffective and did not promote critical thinking or practical skills. So overall, results show that many external factors caused the slow economic progress of Filipinos. In short, the problem is not because of laziness, but because of the system that prevents their advancement.
So my name is Clifford Salcedo. So I'm here to tackle about the life work of Rizal in Brussels. So we know that Rizal's life in Brazil during 1890 highlights his reasons for leaving Paris due to high living costs and distracting affect his writing. It discusses his published articles he concerned about agrarian problems in Calamba and the challenges faced by his family regarding land dispute with the Dominican order. The document also touches on his personal reflection, including a sense of impending death and plans to go to Madrid for legal matters. Rizal's life in Brazil in 1890 to 1891. When José Rizal moved to Brazil, it wasn't just a random decision. It was a strategic. So life in Paris was expensive and distracting. Brazil was quieter, cheaper, and more peaceful. He needed a place where he could think clearly and write seriously. So basically, Rizal went there to lock in focus, and his companion was his uncle Jose Alberto. First stayed with him and helped him settle. The second was after Jose Alberto. The second was Jose Alejandro, a young Filipino engineer student plays his uncle. Alejandro is the roommate and a supporter of Rizal in Europe. So Rizal stayed in a boarding house at 38 Row Philip Champagne. Rizal lived in this house when he wrote his novel El Filibusterismo. In 1890 to 1891, the boarding house is run by two Jacobi sisters named Suzanne and Marie. Marie, or Catherine Jacobi, is the elder sister who was approximately 48 to 55 years old at the time, while Suzanne Jacobi is the younger sister, aged about 44 and to 45. The place was simple and quiet, perfect for studying and writing. Not luxurious, just enough for surviving and productivity. The most important work there of Rizal was the biggest highlights. Rizal continued refined his novel El Filibusterismo. The special about this book is the sequel of Noli Me Tangere. The tone is darker and more serious. It reflects Rizal's growing frustration with Spanish rule. The key idea of Noli and El Fili, or expose, Noli is exposed problems, while El Fili shows anger and the idea of revenge and revolution. So you can see Rizal changing from hopeful reformer to someone who realized change might be harder than expecting. So challenges face Rizal while he is in Brazil. First is the financial problem. Rizal often lack money. Second is the loneliness, far from family and the homeland. Third is the mental pressure. Writing a powerful book is not easy. Fourth is the political tension. His work were dangerous to the Spanish. Despite all that, he didn't stop. Why Brazil is important in Rizal's life? Brazil's represent a turning point. He became more focused and mature. His idea become more radical and realistic. He prepared one of the most important books in the Philippine history. Without Brazil, El Filibusterismo might not have been completed the way it was. So Rizal spent his time writing his second novel, which is the El Filibusterismo. He also wrote articles for La Solidaridad and letters for his family and friends. He spent his remaining time doing gymnastics in the gymnasium, target practice, and fencing at the armory. These writings discuss injustice, social issues, and need for reform in the Philippines. Sa madaling salita, ginamit niya ito ang pagsusulat bilang paraan para ipaglaban ang karapatan ng mga Pilipino. Article published in La Solidaridad. The article he wrote for La Solidaridad during his stay in Brussels was a la defensa or to la defensa. April 30, 1889. La Verdad para Todos, The Truth for All. May 31, 1888. Vicente Barrantes or Triotro Tagalo, June 15, 1889. Una Profanation or a Profanation, July 31, 1889. Verdades Nuevas or New Truth, July 31, 1889. Crueldad or Cruelty, August 15, 1889. Differencias or Differences, September 15, 1889. Inconsequences or Inconsequences, November 30, 1889. Lianto y Risas or Thirst and Laughter, November 30, 1889. Ingratitudes or Ingratitude, January 15, 1890. New Tagalog Orthography. Si Rizal ay tumulong sa pagdevelop ng mas modernong paraan sa pagsusulat ng Tagalog. Sa kanyang work, Sobre la Nueva Ortografía de la Lengua Tagala, he promoted a Filipinized spelling system. Ginamit niya ito sa kanyang translations tulad ng Wilhelm Tell. Binigyan din niya ng recognition si Dr. Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera sa kanyang contribution sa Tagalog language. Ipinapakita nito na mahalaga kay Rizal ang wika bilang bahagi ng identity ng bansa.
Next is Rizal criticizes Madrid Filipino for gambling. In this part, Rizal was very disappointed because Filipinos abroad were acting irresponsibly. Instead of showing good behavior, they were creating a negative image of Filipinos. Rizal also reminded them of their real purpose in Europe, which is to fight for reforms and represent the Philippines properly, not waste time on gambling. Instead of accepting Rizal's advice, they felt offended and mocked him. This shows that not all Filipinos agreed with his strict discipline and leadership. Next is bad news from home. In this part, it shows that Rizal's family was standing against unfair treatment. The issue between Filipino farmers and Spanish landlords was becoming more serious. Because of the resistance, the friars used legal power to remove Rizal's family from their land, showing the abuse of authority. And Rizal's relatives were punished by being sent away by their homes. This shows how severe and unfair this situation was for his family. Next is presentiments of his death. During this time, Rizal felt anxious and believed he might die early. However, his main concern was completing his mission, especially finishing El Filibusterismo. Also, in his letter, this shows that Rizal had long carried this fear, and during this time, it became stronger due to stress and problems. In his letter contains saying, "I am preparing myself for death. Daong laan" means ever ready is my true name. Rizal accepted the possibility of death but stayed ready and committed. It shows his courage and dedication to his purpose.
To go to Madrid. This explains why Rizal decided to go to Madrid. Sinulatan niya ng kapatid niyang si Pasiano Mercado tungkol sa problema nila sa mga Dominicans. Since umabot sa korte ang kaso sa Spain, kailangan niyang pumunta sa Madrid para tutukan ito. He also contacted Marcelo H. del Pilar to help as their lawyer. Sa simpleng salita, pumunta si Rizal sa Madrid para ipaglaban ang kaso ng pamilya niya. To my muse or Ami in 1890, Habang nasa Brussels si Rizal, dumaranas siya ng matinding lungkot at pag-aalala dahil sa problema ng kanyang pamilya. Dahil dito, isinulat niya ang tulang Ami or To My Muse na napapakita ng kanyang lungkot at paghihirap. Dahil sa stress at problema, nailabas ni Rizal ang kanyang damdamin sa pamamagitan ng pagsusulat ng tula. Romance with Petit Suzanne Jacobi. Kahit malungkot si Rizal, may dalawang bagay na nakakapagpapasaya sa kanya. Una, ang Summer Festival sa Belgium, which is puno ng saya, costume at selebrasyon. Pangalawa, ang pagkikilala niya kay Suzanne Jacobi. This experience somehow lifted Rizal's mood while he was preparing to leave. Meaning to say, nakahanap si Rizal ng kunting saya sa festival at sa isang bagong pag-ibig. Na-attract si Suzanne kay Rizal dahil charming ito at gentleman. Si Rizal naman ay mapag-isa dahil malayo siya sa Pilipinas at kay Leonor Rivera. Eventually, na-in-love si Suzanne rather kay Rizal. However, kailangan nang umalis ni Rizal ng papuntang Madrid noong July 1890 at labis itong ikinalungkot ni Suzanne. May love story pero hindi nagtagal dahil kailangan nang umalis ni Rizal. Rizal shows that he was responsible and emotional. He balanced personal feelings with his duties. Pinapakita nito marunong siyang magpahalaga sa tungkulin at kanyang personal na pinagdadaanan.
So today we were going to learn the misfortune of Rizal in Madrid in 1890 to 1891. Rizal arrived in Madrid in August 1890. His main goal was to seek justice for his family and Calamba tenants because the Dominican friars forcibly evicted them from their homes and lands. There, Rizal faced struggles such as legal failures, personal grief, conflicts, and leadership issues. Because of the situation, Rizal sought help from Filipino Colony Association, Hispania Filipina, and liberal Spanish newspapers. Also, Rizal worked with Marcelo H. del Pilar and the Filipino colony in Madrid to appeal to the Spanish government for justice regarding the Calamba situation. But sadly, their appeal was ignored and they failed to seek reforms. They failed to achieve reforms. Worst news received while he was in Madrid. He received the ejectment orders against his family and other tenants. Like what I said earlier, they were forcibly evicted from their homes and lands by the Dominican friar. Second, Pasiano and relatives deported to Mindoro. And when Rizal received the news, he was very devastated. And third, his parents forcibly removed from their homes. Rizal tried to approach Queen Regent Maria Cristina but failed due to lack of influence. So, who is Queen Regent Maria Cristina? He was the highest authority in Spanish during that time, but again, Rizal failed due to lack of political influence and connection at the Spanish court. And events. Eulogy for José María Panganiban. Let us know who is José. José María Panganiban, also known as Mapa or Mapa, is a close intellectual peer to Rizal. He is also a fellow propaganda movement member. José María Panganiban died at the age of 27 because of tuberculosis. Then, because he is a close peer to Rizal, Rizal wrote a eulogy for him in La Solidaridad. Let's move on to the heartbreak over Leonor Rivera. Heartbreak over Leonor Rivera. When Rizal lost his locket with Leonor's photo, Rizal viewed it and seen it as a bad omen. And later on, Rizal then received a news on December 1890 that Leonor married an Englishman. So when Rizal knew this and received the news, Rizal was very devastated. And then Mr. Blumentritt consoled him saying he belonged to the nobler women. He means the motherland. Blumentritt consoled him and personal love.
Aborted duel with Antonio Luna. During one social gathering of Filipino expatriates in Madrid, Antonio Luna, who was also a fellow reformist, got heavily drunk. Still hurt from his failed romance with a woman named Nelly Busted, Luna started saying rude, disrespectful, and slanderous remarks about her while he was not in his right mind. Rizal heard these comments and became very angry as he could not let such insults pass. To defend Nelly's honor, he challenged Luna to a duel. Luna agreed and chose to fight using swords, even though everyone knew that Rizal was much more skilled and experienced in using pistol. The whole community was shocked by the antecedent, but fortunately, Luna soon realized how foolish and wrong he had acted. He apologized to Rizal sincerely, and duel did not push through. Rizal challenges Retena for a duel. Another conflict arose involving Retena, a well-known Spanish scholar who worked as a press agent in the Friars in Spain. Retena constantly wrote articles attacking Filipinos in the reform movement, including personal attacks against Rizal. At one point, he published an article in the newspaper La Ecopa claiming that Rizal's family and other tenants in Calamba were evicted from their lands simply because they failed to pay their rents. This was a lie and a huge insult to Rizal and his family, so he immediately challenged Retena to a duel. Retena knew very well that Rizal was an expert in both swords and pistol, and he had no chance of winning. To avoid the fight, Retena immediately published a public retraction and apology in the newspaper to clear Rizal's name. Surprisingly, this incident made Retena develop deep respect and admiration for Rizal. Years later, he even wrote the first full-length biography for our national hero. Rizal del Pilar rivalry. At that time, Rizal was already recognized as the undisputed leader of all Filipinos in Europe. However, another brilliant reformist, Marcelo H. del Pilar, was also gaining great respect and influence in Madrid. Because of his work on La Solidaridad, the official newspaper of the propaganda movement, del Pilar even bought the publication and replaced Graciano Lopez China as its editor. Rizal had very high ideals for his countrymen. He believed that to earn the respect of the Spanish government and people, Filipino must live with dignity, high moral standards, and a spirit of sacrifice. Unfortunately, not all of his compatriots share this vision. Some prefer to spend their time on drinking, gambling, and leisure, and they dislike Rizal for encouraging them to do better. Because of this, many turn away from Rizal and choose to support Del Pilar instead, creating a divide in the community. To fix the tension and avoid disunity, all Filipinos in Madrid held a meeting on January 1, 1891. They agreed to elect a leader called the Responsible, who would manage the community's affairs and guide the editorial policy of La Solidaridad. Del Pilar opposed the idea of putting his newspaper under someone else's control since it was his private property, but he promised to continue publishing articles that fought for Filipino rights. So the plan to control La Solidaridad was dropped, and they agreed that Responsible would be elected by a two-thirds vote of all members. Rizal abdicates his leadership. During the election, the group was clearly divided into two factions: the Rizalistas who supported Rizal and the Pilaristas who supported Del Pilar. After the votes were counted, Rizal won the landslide, securing the required two-thirds majority to become the Responsible. But even though he won, Rizal politely and gracefully refused to accept the position. He knew that many of his countrymen doesn't like him and prefer Del Pilar, and he did not want to be the cause of bitterness, division, or conflict among his people. He valued the unity of the reform movement more than his own power or position, so he chose to step down and give up his leadership role. Dios Madrid. After declining the position, Rizal wrote a short note thanking his countrymen for the trust and honor they gave him. He packed his belongings, settled all his bills and obligations, and boarded a train leaving Madrid for Patriots dance. This was the very last time Rizal ever saw the city of Madrid, marking the end of a very difficult and challenging chapter of his life.
In conclusion, it shows how José Rizal developed not only as a writer but also a leader during his time in Paris, Brussels, and Madrid. Even though he experienced many challenges like failures, personal problems, and criticism from others, he did not stop fighting for what is right. Instead of using violence, Rizal chose peaceful ways, such as writing and sharing ideas to defend the rights of Filipinos. His decision to give up leadership shows that he cared more about unity among Filipinos than holding power. Overall, this teaches us that true leadership is about sacrifice, strong principle, and putting the country before oneself. And thank you, that's it.